Hi again, it's me. Okay, so um, we're gonna move forward, but before I do that, what I want to do this chapter is I kind of want to just fill in the blanks for everyone because I feel like I need to explain it. That it's really my need for explanation because I know that a lot of you are probably sitting back as I am. It's really hard for me to hear these things come even out of my mouth and say to myself like, what were you even thinking? But I need for you to understand that there were so many other things going on during this time with Mr. X that I think about that I say, well, of course, who would think with all of that's going on, the closing on my house, the apartment in Manhattan, I'm getting paid, we leased an office, there's so many people involved as attorneys and real estate agents and money and banks, and there's just so much going on that even though your spidey senses are going off and tingling and saying something is just not right with this picture, you still have so many other things that support this picture. So it was a constant struggle of knowing, really knowing what that there was something that was just off and wanting to believe and feed into all the supporting things that were going on to say, well, you know what, maybe I am just being skeptical. So when I hear myself tell the story, I even say things to myself like, what? For somebody who's so intelligent, you sure were so dumb because you knew, you felt it, but it was just, there was so much going on. So I need to fill in the blanks for you so that you understand to what magnitude things were happening at this point. Um, so it wasn't just, somebody telling a story and then me just buying into it, even though it was a ridiculous story. So I'm going to fill in some of those blanks before we move forward to, when things started to spiral out of control. It was the beginning of the end. So before that, let's call this chapter 5. My spidey senses are definitely tingling at this point. So a few of the things that I need to clear up that I probably mentioned, but I really didn't go into detail, such as the Wahlburgs, for example. Mr. X met the Wahlburgs through the Wounded Warrior Project. Mr. X is disabled, so being involved in charity or Wounded Warriors and having money, people with money, they do get involved in charities. They do meet, people that are involved in charities. So, okay. Then Mr. X, because I was now taking on this executive role with him, he wanted me to meet Donnie and Jenny. Had a whole night planned out. We were to go out, all of us, for dinner because Mr. X wanted me to be involved in the charity part of his work. So I was supposed to go out. I was supposed to meet the Wahlbergs. And then Jenny and I were going to go shopping while he concluded business with Donnie Wahlberg. Absolutely not. This, believe it or not, I'm not starstruck. So the idea that he was going to have someone take me shopping because he felt like when I attend these high profile functions that I needed some designer clothes, some more, pricey items to wear. The idea that he was going to have someone dress me insulted me. So I don't care who it wasn't going to happen. So me and Mr. X had a little back and forth about that, and I refused to let somebody else take me shopping and pretty much dress me like a Barbie doll. I didn't care who it was. So at this point, that's how the Wahlbergs were involved. That's how he not only knew Donnie and Jenny, but he knew Mark. There were times where Mr. X came into the office late, saying he felt sick because he went and had drinks in Jersey, where Donnie and Jenny live, and there was an investment plan. He was being asked to invest in a new opening of the Wahlburgers, of Wahlburgers. So there was a lot of talk back and forth. At this point, keep in mind that I'm getting paid. I got my car, I got my apartment. Mr. X made his money with high-profile clients, so I would expect that he had some high-profile connections. Eric Clapton. Where did Eric Clapton come in? Eric Clapton sold Mr. X a home in Antigua. And where does Ryan Seacrest come in? Ryan Seacrest was this is how Mr. X made all his money. His first connection was through his fraternity brother at St. John's, who hooked him up with this amazing deal with a celebrity client to do real estate for him anonymously, so that they started some kind of ball rolling where it led to other celebrity clients. But Ryan Seacrest was his first one that he did business with. And Ryan Seacrest, he bought Ryan Seacrest's first or old private jet, which he rented, which his executive partner told me about at dinner when I interviewed at dinner at Madison Square Garden that night. The jet came up and the rental of the jet, and how he yields revenue of about $400,000 a month using the jet for rentals. He had a company name, somebody that he dealt with, a representative that he dealt with that handled all the rental business for him on the jet. There was people involved. Then you have Selena Gomez. So just when you think there's just no way that this small-time boy from Floral Park really knows all these people, and yet you start to fight. You struggle with yourself. You want to believe your instincts and say, no, this is not real. It's not true. And then you want to believe that it is true because there's other things going on. So then he's on the phone, Mr. X, with his son, and his son is begging him to call Selena Gomez because he wants to just talk with her. And he knows that Selena Gomez is one of his dad's clients. So at this point, it's not just me who's being told these elaborate stories. It's carrying over to other people. So if you're on speakerphone talking with your son, and your son is asking you to speak to Selena Gomez, then you must know all of these people. And all of this must be real. You must really have these connections, because who does that? Who would tell that story to their own family, to their own children? So you're over here and you're thinking, okay, add Selena Gomez to the list. Then there's the FBI boys. So the reason why my house was still not funded, the reason why the other agent's house wasn't funded, the one that he went to go look for, the reason why the deposit wasn't put on the apartment yet that he put in the offer for, with the quick close that these people packed their stuff up, is because all of the reason why all of these deals were being held up, except for our payroll, is because Mr. X does realty for the federal government. A lot of his biggest deals are with the feds. So, because of that, he's told that he can't raise eyebrows, that he has to be discreet with his withdrawals, with his spending, that he can't show money. So, show a lot of money coming out at once. Okay, now, I know that Mr. X has a family from Floral Park in law enforcement that has to do with the federal government. So, I also know that two of the executives that I met are also in law enforcement, but they're police officers. So, there's a lot of law enforcement going on here. So doing real estate for the federal government, being retired from the federal government, having your son be a broker for the federal government is not so far a stretch. So plus you're talking to your son about Selena Gomez, plus your executives told me about the private jet that you got from Ryan Seacrest, plus you are spending all this money. You are investing all of this money. You are paying my payroll. You are paying the payroll of all the people who I hired, plus benefits. You have an office that's functional. You have computers, you have printers, desks, office supplies. There's a lot going on. So even though the red flags are still going off, you're saying to yourself, but what about this? And what about that? And how could he do this? Or how could it, if it's not true, how could he do that? Who does these things? Nobody. Okay, so that brings me to the Beats Board of Directors meeting. Mr. X asked me, do you have a passport? Of course I have a passport. Yes, I've traveled for work before. I have a passport. Can you accompany me on my private jet to Brazil? Because I'm on the board of directors for Beats. And I have to be at the meeting, and I could use some help. I could use you to be there. It would be good. Maybe we should take a few people just to show a presence. Okay, book it. So let's go to Brazil. So about a week before we're ready to leave for Brazil, not even a week, less than a week, Mr. X makes us all go to the Big East tournament in Madison Square Garden. So first, even though he asked me if we would go, if I would, me and take maybe his assistant or someone else to this Beats Board of Directors meeting in Brazil, before the Big East tournament, we didn't leave until after the Big East tournament. So we go to the Big East tournament. St. John's is playing, of course. So that's why Mr. X is there. Mr. X supports St. John's because that's, where he got his degree from, and, where he has all his alma mater. So we go there. Now I noticed that Mr. X sits, because coming from North Carolina, I'm in Madison Square Garden. All I can do is smell the amazing food of New York City at this point. Having nothing in North Carolina except chicken wings and barbecue, which is disgusting. Sorry, people in North Carolina, I love you. But coming back to New York, where you smell all the different ethnic foods and all the different foods in Madison Square Garden, I said, you guys go sit down. I am going to get myself a beer and a sandwich. Because if I'm going to watch this game, because we were all forced to go, then I want to really have the whole experience. So they go first to Mr. X's section, which is ADA accessible. And so they help him up there in the section. And then when I get up there, I notice that Mr. X left a seat to the left of him for me. So it's Mr. X, empty seat, and then the rest of the employees. So this is making me feel very uncomfortable at this point. So I sit down with my food, my beer. I'm ready to watch the game. St. John's is playing. My first time at the Big East tournament. So we're watching the game, but Mr. X isn't watching the game. Mr. X has his head turned the whole time, and he's watching me as I'm stuffing my face with a sausage and pepper hero. So it's very uncomfortable at this point that he keeps watching me. I can feel it. Like I could feel that his eyes, he's just staring at me, and I'm pretending to watch the game. It's very awkward. I must have got up 3 times to go and leave and go back into the lobby and make like I was going to the ladies' room because it was that uncomfortable. Then at one point, Mr. X reached over and to ask me a question, but he had his hand on my leg, at which point I pushed Mr. X's hand off my leg, told him that I was very uncomfortable, and then I said, I'm going to the ladies' room. At which point Mr. X said, again, didn't you just go to the ladies' room? Okay. This isn't high school anymore. I'm a grown woman, and I made it clear to Mr. X, I was not asking your permission. It was just a courtesy to let you know where I was going. And I got up and I went back into the lobby until the game was over. When the game was over, I came back in to join the employees because that's how uncomfortable and just weirded out that I felt. It was creepy. So when I came back in, Mr. X had a very serious attitude. The employees were like, oh, he's mad. He's mad about something. I knew exactly what he was mad at, but I just said, well, he'll have to get over it. Game's over. So we were leaving. So that brings me to, so that's the story of the Big East tournament. And that brings me to, from that point forward, Mr. X, he would ask me for lunch. Would you like to have lunch? Would you like to have dinner? What are you doing over the weekend? Maybe we should work on XYZ over the weekend. No, no, no. At this point, guys, and I'll go into it in the next chapter, I am trying to build the website, trying to keep myself busy for a new growth in a company, an expansion of different sectors of a company. I should have like not a minute to myself. And at this point, I'm seriously trying to keep myself busy. So this is a problem. So the fact that Mr. X wants to have lunch or wants to have dinner, the red flags are just going off like crazy. But yet I'm still getting paid. Real estate agents are going to trainings. Their licenses are being moved over to his brokerage. Then there was a lunch set up um, across the street at Cassidy's. It was me, Mr. X, and a real estate agent that he was trying to get to come over, a different one from that showed us the apartments. This was a gentleman, and he actually was going into event planning now, and I didn't even know that. I really didn't know anything about real estate, but I didn't know that in like in New York City, when there are people that plan the open houses, they are like major events. And like there's food involved. Sometimes there's entertainment involved, and I had no idea about any of that stuff. I never owned, bought, or sold anything in Manhattan before, or in a city like New York before. So this agent had shelved his license and decided he was going to give it a go at event planning for a while. So Mr. X asked him if he would be willing to shelf his license under his brokerage. There was a benefit. I don't remember the benefit for both parties of doing that, but I know there was a benefit to Mr. X to have him shelf the license under him, and there was a benefit to the agent to shelf it under Mr. X as well. So we have this lunch. It starts off about his license, real estate license, and shelving it, and where he's going from here. Then the agent starts talking to Mr. X about his event plans, his event planning career or plans to go forward with what he's going to do in that field and why he wants to try that field out. Now we're having lunch, and so Mr. X asks him some questions about him throwing a party for him at his house in Jumby Bay in Antigua, the same house that supposedly he bought from Eric Clapton. And he tells this agent that it was Eric Clapton's house. So he wants this party to be thrown. It's as a housewarming because it's a new house. He wants for when him and his wife and his family. He wants to fly in all these people. He tells the agent he's going to fly in his own chef to cook at the party, but he needs staff. They go over pricing per head. They go over all different catering items with Mr. X and estimates and people and processes. So we spend a good hour going over this party that Mr. X plans to throw in Jumby Bay, Antigua. And this agent he has no idea, that this isn't real. I have no idea at this point if this is real or not. And this agent is working with Mr. X to give him or bid on this party. And in return, Mr. X will have him shelf his license with him. So they exchange cards, we have lunch, shake hands. Great, there's this big party that's going to happen in Jumby Bay, Antigua. Then you have, so let me step back a second. So then Mr. X is still asking me for lunch, and I refuse to go. It's not appropriate, and I should be really busy working at this point. And I'm not going, just going out for lunch every day. It's just, not something I need to do. So then Mr. X starts inviting the whole office. Now, granted, there's 4, maybe 5 people tops at any given moment in the office. So we're not talking 30 people, 40 people, 100 people. But he invites everybody to lunch. Most of the time, and it's every day, And most of the time it's at um, Uncle Jack's Steakhouse. Sometimes it was at the Cock and Bull. Sometimes it was across the street at Cassidy's. Um, those were the main places, mostly Uncle Jack's. The bills were always about $400 to $500 for lunch, and lunch always lasted about 3 hours, 3.5 hours. Now, this is where I have my struggles because, like I said, I'm an intelligent woman. I have been working professionally for 2 decades since I graduated and left Floral Park. So at this point, I'm well aware that we shouldn't even have half-hour lunches. We should be so busy at this point with the expansion and building business because we spent a lot of money. You can't spend a lot of money and not have any money coming in. These agents need to be out there selling. We need to be out there getting listings. We need to be out there closing deals. So even though I don't know a lot about real estate at this point, I know that in order to spend money, you have to make money, or you're not going to last. What's the point? So these 3 hour lunches are going on. I decide that I can't do this. So I went to a few of the lunches. I start backing off. I go get my nails done at lunch if I need a break. I go have a hot dog. I go have a pretzel. I go have a shot of wheatgrass, which everybody in the office thought was disgusting. But I don't have the patience to sit in Uncle Jack's for 3.5 hours eating great food, even though it's great food, because it causes me a struggle. It causes me to say, what are we doing? Am I getting paid just to go to lunch? And I know that sounds like that would be really cool, but it's not really cool. It's not really cool to think you left your whole life for a new career and all you're doing is sitting at Uncle Jack's eating food. So it sounds cool, but it's not cool. Not even a little. Then you have the Jeep dealers. Because during the time before I had, and I forgot to bring this up, filling in the blanks, before he deposited the money into my bank for me to get the car, one of the reasons why I couldn't bring my car with me to Long Island is because I have 2 teenage daughters, and they had jobs, and we shared my car. I had 2 cars, I had 2 daughters, and we shared. And so me leaving and taking the car with me, when it was in my contract that I was getting a car, it kind of put a wrench in our plans because I didn't plan on one of my daughters not having a way to get to work, a way to get to school, all of that stuff. So when that happened, 2 Jeep dealers called me because Mr. X contacted them. He was customizing Jeeps for my daughters. Now, sounds crazy, I know. I know you're thinking, where was your common sense? And that you are a stupid, stupid woman. But I'm not. I'm really not. All of these things were going on at once. There was a lot of money being spent. There was a lot of people being brought into this. So even though you want to say to yourself, the hell is wrong with you? What were you thinking? At the same time, there were a lot of things going on that made you say, well, if it's not true, who would do that? That it has to be true because he involved so and so. It has to be true. I heard him on the phone with his son. It has to be true. He went to a meeting for an FBI real estate deal with his assistant, who reports to me, who is my friend, and his dad was there. So and they were there. So there really was a deal. So it doesn't feel right. There's something missing, but a lot of this is just too elaborate to be everybody in on it. Everybody can't be in on it. Either that or I'm crazy. So some of this has to be true because who even does this? Who does this? Then, the personal shopper. So then, because I refused, and if you remember, I just told you, we had a little back and forth, or I guess you want to say argument, because I was insulted because he wanted Jenny McCarthy to take me shopping. Not because, no offense to Jenny McCarthy, I'm sure she dresses very beautifully, But I just felt like I have business attire. I don't, I know how to dress for work. Um, I know how to dress professionally. So I didn't really feel like I needed that assistance. I was more insulted that Mr. X would suggest that I needed that. So what he did was he called me. Now remember, I told you I refused to start going to lunch. I refused dinners. Work was work. This was not personal for me. This was about work. So Mr. X made an appointment for me at Lord and Taylor's so that I could have a personal shopper pick me out clothes and I could have a new wardrobe, the clothes of my choice, nobody helping me, nobody deciding for me, and I could do it on my own on a Sunday afternoon. No, still not happening. And so then he wants to come. I'm going to come. I'm just going to make sure it's all set up. I don't have to stay, although I would like to see the new clothes that I'm paying for. Absolutely not. I'm not going. We're not doing this whole pretty woman thing that you got going on in your head. It's not happening. So just forget it. So Mr. X ends up taking or giving that appointment to his wife. Yes, Mr. X is married, second wife. So now he ends up giving this appointment to his wife, who very happily goes, never knows that he offered it to me first for professional reasons, so that he could watch me. I could come out and he could see what clothes I'm wearing, just like Pretty Woman. Really creepy stuff. I refused. He gives the appointment to his wife. I'm very happy he gives the appointment to his wife. Then, like I'm going through the list that I put, I laid out for you, so that you can understand some of the things that were happening during this time. Then, the seventh floor. The seventh floor of our office building was one of the only floors that had the ADA accessible bathroom. So every day, around 2 o'clock-ish, Mr. X would call in. He would call in all day. I can't get the volume up on my computer. Can you help me? Can you come in here and take notes? I want to give you some information. Any reason. He would come in my office and just sit there. And I'd be like, well, what can I do for you? I just want to watch you work. I can't watch you work. I'm not allowed to do that. Well, it's kind of awkward. It's kind of hard for me to work. You're going to be looking at me. Is there something that you need? Just creepy stuff. So at this point, I am really trying not to lose my cool, because the Spidey senses are off the charts, but I'm still getting paid. I still have my benefits. I got my car. I got my apartment. So at this point, and I'm waiting for my house to get funded, which is supposed to happen any time now. He's just waiting for the okay from the boys at the federal government. Okay. Seventh floor, 2 o'clock. Mr. X, I need you to take me upstairs to the seventh floor. No. Mr. X has been disabled since birth. He has been getting himself around for 45 years. At what point did he need me to take him into an elevator to go up to the seventh floor to help him into an ADA accessible bathroom? Like, what did you do for 45 years before this when you had to go? What happened then? What if I wasn't there? What if I was sick that day? Not doing it. So I'm the office bitch at this point because I refuse to take Mr. X up to the seventh floor bathroom. So his assistant does it, because I think at this point I see what's going on more than his assistant, more than the agents. I think I know that there's something really wrong, more than anybody knows, because I was in it from the beginning, and it's just not adding up. So at 2 o'clock every day, as the days went on, his assistant, who was a friend of mine, would come with me. An agent or two would come with me. We would go sneak outside, go by the pretzel vendor. That was our meeting time. That was girl time, because all of us at some point knew that we were having all of this. There was all of this going on, but there was no work being done. The agents weren't getting listings. The agents weren't going to open houses. The agents weren't getting leads from his book of high-profile clients. There was nothing going on. Now, I worked for enough CEOs at this point to know, or actually, I've worked for the same CEO at this point to know that at an executive level, you should not be stagnant. You should be on the phone constantly. You are growing your business. You're expanding your business. Your phone should be ringing. You should be making phone calls. You should not be every day at Uncle Jack's for 3.5 hours. There's just no way you're running an expanding company and trying to grow your company, and I haven't seen you on one client phone call. Not one. No incoming calls, no outgoing calls that were work related. So we're all kind of like, what's going on here? But we're all getting paid. I have the house hanging over my head. We're all kind of in this office. We all have equipment. We're all like, well, what's going on? So we're all trying to figure out what's going on at this point. So and then after work, Mr. X, he would try and make me feel guilty because I would just leave work. Look, I don't have enough of work right now for me to stay here and put in extra hours. For what? If we needed extra hours, then we shouldn't be at Uncle Jack's for 3.5 hours. Or the Cock and Bull for 3.5 hours every day while you're having lunch. I shouldn't have to stay extra hours if you have that much free time during the day. It doesn't make sense. So my work day is over. Going home. Sorry. And at this point, I don't know what to think. My head's ready to pop off, but I can't. I have to keep my cool, because if all of this is real and there is a logical explanation for all of this quirky and crazy behavior, I have to kind of hold on and keep my cool, because it's my job right now. It's my source of income. I have people at home living out of boxes because my house went to closing. So I have no choice but to grin and bear it right now and kind of see this thing through until I know for sure that it's either real or not real. Because right now, everything is, I have to wait because, or I know you don't believe me, but I'll send you an email proving it. And it's just, every time I questioned it and I challenged it, there was something to diffuse my challenge and make me want to hold on and say, okay, well, maybe this is real. So then, at the end of the day, when I would go home, Mr. X would try and make me feel guilty because he has to take a cab. He can't hop on a subway like me. And I didn't care how he got in the cab. Now, wait a second. So, again, I, from the beginning, have been involved. So I'm at wit's end. I'm trying really hard not to snap out on Mr. X. I'm trying really hard to accept his explanations and smile and just keep going forward with my day. Whereas, I guess it was easy, being that he's disabled, for others to kind of feel bad. Feel bad like he's asking for help and you're not helping him. But, well, Mr. X, again, has been in a wheelchair for his whole life. Mr. X has lived in Manhattan for 13 years. I personally saw him jump into a cab after dinner of my interview. I got into the car service that took me back to Long Island, and I saw him hop into a cab or hail a cab that helped him get into the cab driver, and go home. He's been getting around the city perfectly fine without my help. So why do I need to hang around and make sure he gets in a cab? Again, what did you do for 45 years before I was there? Not being cold, not being heartless, but Spidey senses tingling. I do not need to be there to make sure you get in a cab. And the fact that you want to make me feel bad because I won't wait with you for a cab, I'm going to call you out on that. And I did. And I said, let's be honest. You don't need me to get in a cab. But if I stay and wait for you to get the cab, then that's more time that I have to stay here, and that's more time that you have me in your sight. Right or wrong? And Mr. X just laughed, at which point I said, I'm going home. And I got in my subway. I took off and went to the subway. So, again, I'm really, really, really trying to chalk it up to somebody who knew me from Floral Park who's just making light jokes or really just wants to connect because he feels like we have that Floral Park thing going on. Trying to hold on for the sake of everything that's happening around me, that there is an explanation that all of these people can't be in on this horrible, horrible prank. There has to be some truth to it. So then comes the first deposit. Now, because I'm the vice president of operations, my name is on the bank account. Because if Mr. X is traveling, like to the Beats Board of Directors meeting in Brazil, if Mr. X is traveling, somebody needs to be able to sign checks. Somebody needs to be able to execute, business while he's away. So being the vice president of operations, that would be me. So he added me as an authorized person to his bank account, the business bank account. Okay. One of the very first deposits after a deal with the boys at the federal government was a very large deposit of about 700. I think it was don't quote me, $787,000. It was 780 something $1,000, that I know. And it went into the bank. And I was using it to pay payroll and using it to fund the business and all the operational expenses. So I knew that there was money in there. From that money, I was supposed to get the funding for my house. So at this point, I have no choice. I know the check is in there. I know the money's in there. I know it's from a deal from the federal government because I was there when the text came in that they were going to closing. So I know that part of this, to every lie there is some truth. And I know that part of this is real. And I know that the money is in there now for me to go to closing or for him to fund the closing on my house. Because again, I have my ex-husband living out of boxes. I have it hanging over my head that I have to sell my house because I'm trying to move on. I'm living 640 miles away in New York City. I have my kids hanging in the balance. So that was supposed to be the first of many deposits that were to come. That was the first installment. Okay. Meanwhile, back in North Carolina, on a separate note, I have my children there. I'm not there for the first time. Mommy's not there to make sure everybody's, nicey nice. Um, my youngest daughter this is early 2015. My youngest daughter is getting ready to graduate high school. It's at this time that her and her father, my ex-husband, there's just something going on there. They're not getting along. She's not being herself. I don't know if it's because I'm away. I don't know if it's because we're selling the house. I don't know if it's from all the stress. I don't know what's going on with her. I just know that they're at each other's throats. They're like oil and water. Every night I'm dealing with, and sometimes during the day, I'm dealing with the phone calls. Uh, she did da 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 da, or daddy said da 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 da, and it's back and forth, and I'm playing referee between the two of them. And then I don't know what's going on. She's not getting to school on time. Here's my daughter who I'm so proud of her. She is such a good kid. Both my daughters are. They're really, really intelligent and really great kids. And she was scheduled to graduate early. She was going to graduate in January because she had all her credits except for one, which she was going to make up at the end of the 2014 semester so that she can graduate January in 2015 and walk in June. So she was graduating a semester early. I was very proud of her. But at this point, she's having a problem with her father. I mean, chalk it up to teenage girls. I was one. My dad could probably tell you. I gave him some headaches. So chalk it up to teenage girls and things that go on when you're 17 years old, in high school, senior in high school, that maybe, a dad doesn't understand that a mom would. But it's a lot of back and forth and a lot of go between every day. There's a lot of tensions. It's putting a lot of stress on me. then she's not getting up on time for school. She's not doing her work. She's not going to school. So all of this on top of all of what is going on is just adding a lot of pressure. So every day I'm trying harder and harder not to lose my cool completely and just snap. Because anybody who knows me will tell you that I'm very easygoing, and I will let it go and let it go and let it go and let it go, and I will find a way to deal through the struggle until I can't anymore. And then my head explodes. It's not a healthy way to handle things, but hopefully it never gets to that point, because I try and funnel that frustration some other way. So right now I am at the height of frustration, not knowing what to believe, not knowing what's going on, just knowing I'm getting paid, just knowing I have someplace to live, not knowing what's going on with my daughter and what's going on back at home, not knowing what's real, if the house is going to get funded, what's not real. Very frustrating. So at this point, I did a lot of listening to music. I always had my headphones on. I wasn't, again, still not going to lunches, not going to dinners, not doing anything outside of my work hours, and trying to keep myself busy during work hours, doing things that I knew, whether it was real or not, had to get done, and that was what I was getting paid to do. So um, one of the one of the things that one of the songs that I listened to during this time was Shut Up and Dance. It was my feel-good song. I would put it on in the office. I would put it on from my laptop. It had just come out during that time, and it was just a song that lifted up my spirits. It was one of many, and it helped me get through this time. So I have my song therapy going on at this time. So that's where I'm going to leave you right now. Before we move forward into the spiral downward, into finding out the truth, I wanted to fill in some of the blanks for you so that you weren't listening to these saying, well, how could she even think any of that? Because there was so much going on. There was so many things being told to so many people in front of me. There was money being spent. There was money being deposited. We were getting paid. So as outlandish and as crazy as it sounds, that Jenny McCarthy was going to take me shopping with Mr. X's business card, as crazy as that sounds, could it be? At this point, you just don't know. You don't know what's real and what's not real. And I am so invested at this point that I have no choice but to smile and try and get to the bottom of it and try and figure it out. And then even if I get to the bottom of it, what's my next move? Because I left my job. I'm getting paid. So what do I do from here? Even if I get to the bottom of it, what's my next move? So I'm going to leave you with that so that you understand everything that goes on from this point forward, so that you understand that I'm not a complete idiot and I'm not as foolish as it sounds, because I'll tell you, I know it sounds pretty foolish. And I'll see you next time. Thank you for listening. Thank you for helping me get this out. I do feel better after I get to tell you guys my story. Pass it on. I know that I have been helping other people. I believe it or not, I thought I was the only one who has ever been taken this way. But I have had quite a few people reach out to me, and I'm glad that I'm helping you too, because you're helping me. So feel free to share it and like it, and thank you very much. And have a good night, everybody. Hope your weekend was great.